Great go live, sorry. Hello and welcome to the Eyes of Life show. I am your host, Yolo Schubert. Thank you for joining us today. I want to thank all who watched the show last week and all who have tuned in to the Zana Anye website to look at her products. I must say, she is very thankful for all those that took a look at her website. Also, she is taking pre-orders. And if you would like to pre-order, please go to my page, The Eyes of Life Show, to get the link to her website. Also, I am again wearing some of her products. I have on her eyelashes and the binding glue for her eyelashes, which I tell you is very amazing. I love it. And she actually gave me another one of her products. This one was Paradise from a previous brand that she had. Once again, I've now tried two of her lip gloss products, and I must say, my lips feel amazing. They feel moist, not sticky, and she just has amazing products. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in last week and for everyone that who showed her some love and went on her website to check out her line and her product. Please, let's support our youth as they are starting their own foundation to become their own corporation and CEOs of their own company. So I want to thank you guys for supporting her. And like I said, going to her website, and she did advise me that she will be taken. And if you want to put in your pre orders now, you can. Um, Once again, I thank you for supporting her for last week's show. That will be Zanai Anye products. So today's show, we're going to talk about reparations after emancipation. And part of today's show, it's an educational tool. So I'm not attacking anyone. I am just speaking the truth. And I'm not here to offend anyone by educating our people, black and brown people, and the people who were wronged during the course of slavery. So I'm not here to attack anybody um, for who you are as a person or individual. I'm not here to attack you. So what I'm going to say is, if what I'm saying does not pertain to you, then don't let it feel like an attack. However, if you feel what we as brown and black people feel, then support our cause when it comes down to reparation. So as we dive into reparations after emancipation, let's just take a look at the definition of reparations based on Oxford Dictionary. The definition says the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. The courts require a convicted offender to make financial reparations to his victims. So when I tell you that everybody that's now came over here, didn't come over here on their own free will, they were victims. Let's look at what the law dictionary says when it comes down to restitution. Okay. So, N1 says returning the property owner property or the monetary value of loss. Sometimes restitution is made part of a judgment and negligence and or contract cases. It's one. Two says in criminal cases, one of the penalties imposed is requiring return of stolen goods to the victim or payment to the victim for harm caused. Restitution may be a condition of granting a defendant probation or giving him or her a shorter sentence than normal. So that's what the law dictionary says. So when I take a look at the law dictionary and I'm looking at restoration and I'm looking at reparation on what the families will be looking at. Okay. So when I look back at all the people that were enslaved and they couldn't go where they wanted to go, they were taken from their homes, they were stolen off their land and shipped miles and thousands of miles away to a whole nother world. I look at things under the definition completed in the law dictionary that falls under attorney's works, attorney-client privilege, compounding a felony, depositions, overt acts, reviews, undue influences, work product. So these are some of the things that I literally have came across. But one thing that struck my eye under that when I was looking at reparations under the law, there were some things that came into play. So one of the things that came into play was under compounding a felony. Okay, so this is what it said. It said, when a person injured by a felony, being shot, having one's business trashed, being robbed, reaches an agreement with the one causing the harm that the injured party, victim, will not prosecute, complain to law authorities, or testify. The apparent felony in return for money, payments, or reparations. So when you take a look at everything that went on from 1619, when they started, when the Europeans started bringing the slaves over. So from 1619, when we actually got, to be brought over here as slaves against our will, and when we actually started here and we went on over, wanted to get our reparations from 1619 to 1662. And if you want to look at when Texas freed the slaves, 1665, okay, that's a lot of years. And up to the present, that's still a lot of years of not giving reparations to our people. But did we get reparations? So let me tell you one thing I was thinking about. So when we hear of emancipation or reparations, this is one thing we think about. We think about Juneteenth. The anniversary of Juneteenth is June 19th, 1865. This is an anniversary that I celebrate, but I technically don't celebrate the 4th of July, okay, because that's when America got their independence. However, we didn't get ours. So I took a look at the 4th of July, and I said, why am I celebrating the 4th of July? Okay, when enslaved people in Texas, the last Confederate state, was still enslaved for 3 years after slavery had ended and before they were freed. So Texas said, okay, I don't care. You guys went on ahead and freed your people, 3 years before, but we're going to keep ours as slaves until we can. So that's basically what they did. But the important date of emancipation took place in April of 1862. Okay? Years before Juneteenth, the Congress passed the law to free all enslaved Black people in Washington, D.C. So they knew this was coming. Okay? So my thing is, you didn't want to free us. And everybody think, oh, the Declaration Proclamation, oh, that freed the slaves. Lincoln really wanted to free the slaves. No, if Lincoln could have got what he wanted without freeing the slaves, he would have. He would have. He didn't care about really freeing the slaves. It was all about money. But in the process, hey, we got freed. But did we really get freed? I think Jill Scott National Anthem really hit it on the nose. I know it, pissed a lot of people off, but it was truthful and it was honest. So when I look at things, this is another thing I'm going to talk about here. Let's talk about this. So who did receive reparations? Yes, some free slaves and enslavers. Some free slaves received their 40 acres and a mule. However, thousands to millions did not. But each enslaver who owned property had to have insurance on their property. So since we were considered property during that time when enslaved people were freed, all enslavers received a minimum of at least maybe $300 per slave. So that's $300 per person, especially in the District of Columbia. So let's look a little bit more. So let's look at the banks who paid the reparations, okay, and who had ties to slavery. So there's some banks that we sit there, we put our money in today, okay. I'm quite sure all these banks, if you go back in time, actually had something to do with paying that money out to these enslavers who actually lost their slaves, because now they're now free. So we're going to pay them, which I'm still not understanding, because reparations say when you wrong someone, okay? So let's look at these banks who paid reparations and with ties to slavery. Barclays, HSBC, Lloyd's Banking Group, and NatWest Group have all been identified as having historical links to slavery. And I also heard Wells Fargo. However, it hasn't been proven. I haven't actually confirmed that yet, but that was one bank that I was looking into. Haven't finished looking into them yet, but was, told that they also paid out some money to enslavers for them losing their quote unquote property, their human property. Okay, so example, HSBC merged with Midland Bank in 1992, a predecessor of which the London Joint Stock Bank has clear links to slavery. Its first manager, George Pollard, had 134 slaves in Nevis. He received reparation for his slaves equivalents of $230,000 based on today's market. So we look at, if you had 134 slaves in today's world, you would get an equivalent of $230,000 today in today's market. So wow. The major slave owners within the Atlantic trade slave systems were Europeans. When English abolished slavery in its Caribbean colonial islands, it offered compensation to 46,000 slave owners at the cost of around $26.2 million. Okay? They offered them. You talk about generational wealth. Seriously? Wow. I'm quite sure they still have a lot of that. When slave owners got reparation, okay, so let's talk about this now. So, yes, we know slave owners got reparation. They received reparation. Lincoln signed a bill in 1862 that paid up to $300 for every enslaved person who was freed. The largest individual payout was to an enslaver of $18,000 for 69 slaves. 69 slaves, they got $18,000. 69. That's like a mind blower. You got $18,000 back in 1865, but you don't want to give us $1,000 or $2,000 a piece. Who were the insurance companies who paid these reparations? Let's take a look at a couple of them. ACE, USA, Aetna, AIG, Manhattan Life, New York Life, Penn Mutual, Providence, Washington, Royal and Sun Alliance. So I know for a fact there are many of us out there who have used these insurance companies either for life insurance, medical insurance, homeowners insurance, some type of insurance we have used these companies for. So for one, I know I've had Aetna. I've had actually AIG. Okay, New York Life Insurance. I've heard that insurance way back in the 70s. And these are some of the people we're paying our money to. Come on, y'all. We got to do a little better. We have to start doing a little bit more better educating ourselves. So what happened with the 40 acres and a mule? After Lincoln, okay, so after Lincoln was assassinated on April 14th, 1865, the order would be reversed and the land given to the Black families would be rescinded. And when I say rescinded, I mean returned back. Okay? That means they don't get it now. And returned back to the white Confederate landowners. More than 100 years later, more than 400,000, like we still waiting for our portion, our land. Where is it? But yet we got to buy our land because we got to buy houses. We can't get what our ancestors were promised. Nowhere near it. Not even an acre or acre, maybe 2 acres. You said 40. Well, maybe we could just give us one. Okay? So over 100 years later, 40 acres and a mule would remain a battle cry for Black people demanding their reparations for slavery. We're still demanding those reparations. Okay? Our ancestors didn't get it. And when they did, What happened? They took it back. Were they afraid we would rise up? We would become smart? We would learn? Of course. Of course. Because they didn't know how to crop the land. They didn't know how to make things grow out of that land. They didn't know how to make their own money. How much would 40 acres and a mule be worth today? The value of 40 acres and a mule today is a matter of debate. You know, we're trying to figure out what would it estimate about? Maybe $6 trillion, depending on and based on the land, what it was worth back then in 1865. So let's ponder on reparations a little bit here. Okay? When descendants of all enslavers say, and this is something, people say, you hear it a lot, okay? When descendants of all enslavers say they should not have to pay reparations or think this country should not pay reparations to the millions of descendants whose ancestors were enslaved, I would like to say to you, you are living off generational wealth. So if you don't feel as though that we should get reparations, why should you be benefiting from generational wealth? You're benefiting off of our ancestors just like you're benefiting off of your ancestors. So what is so different between you benefiting from yours and us benefiting from ours? Their broken backs, their broken hands, their broken legs, their beatings, their whips, their wrongdoing that was done to them. I don't see no difference in you actually sitting here saying we don't deserve that, but it's okay for you to sit there and reap the benefits off of yours. 90 to 95% of white Europeans came to this country and stole the land from the native people. Okay? They stole it. We all know they stole it. Did not want to see the free slaves survive. This is why they reversed the bill that Lincoln signed after he was assassinated. In addition to killing, threatening, stealing land from free people. Now, let me tell you something. When I say free people, I mean free people. Some people were never, they had been freed and emancipated ever since indentured servitude. But it didn't matter. The fact that they had access, okay? They had those assets. They had land. They didn't want them to prosper. And one thing we know is for our generations back then, our ancestors, they used the land to grow food. They used the land to sell their fruits, their vegetables, their crops. This is how a lot of them made money. Their animals, they would grow pigs, cows. They would groom these animals. So if you've taken that from them, if you're stealing and you're threatening and you're killing, I think all that falls under that reparation that they deserve. You're preventing them from growing, prospering. So once again, 90 to 95%, I want to say, because there were some folks that were out there that were willing to help. They were willing to help people be free. They were willing to help with them. Oh yeah, there were plenty of white folks on the Underground Railroad. You know, they were out there working and helping to get plenty of slaves free. They supported the cause and knowing that slavery was wrong. Okay? So, what are some of the things that was done? They did everything to prevent our ancestors from prospering. Let's take a look at some of the things that they did. Falsely accused them of crimes they did not commit. So, in other words, you could see, you know, something happened. Oh, you fit that description. I wasn't nowhere near there. Hey, that wasn't me. But yet, you're going to pay the cost for that crime. Has nothing to do with you, not even the right description, really. But because all Black people supposed to look alike, I don't understand how that is because we are all different shades and colors. But yet and still, you get accused of a crime you didn't commit. Unfair justice laws, where Blacks would never be able to try and free when it was their word against a white person's word. How many times we hear stories that took place back, especially during the Jim Crow era, before the Jim Crow era, where a Black person or a brown person was wronged. And they figure, oh, well, no, the laws of this land is here to protect everybody. The laws of this land is going to bring me justice. So is that person's word against that white man's word, especially if that person killed a relative. You can have 5 different million witnesses to say that person pulled the trigger, or that person assaulted, or that person did wrong too. But it's never going to matter. Why? Because it's that Black person's word or that brown person's word over a white person's word. And how many of us know a lot of our ancestors have went to jail, never came home for things like this? How many people were hung? Forget about the jury, forget about going even into court. They were tried and judged, okay, without being in a courtroom, even though they did nothing wrong. Okay, they were lynched. Okay, hanging, lynching, however you choose to put it. Okay, hanging or lynching for just being a Black man, whether you were freed or not. The fact that you thought you were somebody could get you lynched. Oh, you served in the military. You served in World War I. You served in the Civil War. You served in World War II. However you served, but because a Black man walked with pride, because they helped protect this country that didn't give a darn about protecting them, you could be lynched. Especially in the South, you could be lynched. But you fought. I have a plenty of ancestors, family members, uncles and aunts, children that I have seen that have enlisted during the Civil War time. Did they get their just dues? Did they get treated like they were supposed to for serving this country? Did they? I wonder if they did. White men always accusing Black men. This is a good one. Okay. White men always accusing our black men of looking and raping their women when it was them doing the raping and not being convicted. So there was plenty of them that was convicted, killed for just looking at a white man and not putting their head down, bowing down basically, because they can't look them in the face. Or if you're walking on the same sidewalk, you got to move. So if you don't want to get off that sidewalk and you just say, oh, excuse me, ma'am, or excuse me, sir, you were convicted of talking to a white person. You were convicted of speaking to a white woman. Look at Emmett Till, a baby. There are so many more out there that were done like that. So many more. Deliberately destroying our businesses. Just look at Wall Street, 1920. Anything we had that was making us prosper, it was destroyed. It was deliberately destroyed. It wasn't done by accident. Oh, it wasn't done because you disrespect them. It was because you had the audacity to think it was okay for you to get a business and make money for yourselves, to support and take care of your families. You end up in this doing that. Because what the South wanted to keep their way of life. They want to keep this way of life. So they have to stay on top. They want to stay on top. Why what? We stay down below them. Even in today's society, they continue to pay Black and brown people of color less money. They continue to pay us less. I mean, bad enough women. Okay, you want to get paid less than that man. But when it comes down to a person of color looking at their salary versus another person, it's always going to be something short there. Okay? It's always going to be something short there. So we are going to always be under the assumption that we're never going to be able to be as educated, regardless if we have a degree and the person that's applying for this position does not. But they'll pick that person because why? Okay, well, they work in the same department. Although she has seniority and have a degree, let's talk to so-and-so about promoting them. It's a lot of that going on today. A lot of that. And slavery been over 400 years ago. So why is that mentality still in effect in this world today? I'm waiting for somebody to please, tell me that. So this is why I say we must educate our young children. Stop thinking it's cool to be out on the corner, making fast money because fast money is short life. Why do you think they're opening up all these liquor stores in our neighborhoods? You go out in the suburb, you don't see a liquor store open on their corners. You don't see a wine and beer spirit over here. No. They do it to keep us here mentally, emotionally, physically impaired. Do we deserve to get reparations? Yes, we do. However, Congress and the House of Representatives will never agree to give reparations to Black and brown people because almost all of them are descendants from those European families who came over here and stole the land from the Native American people. And I know people want to say, oh, Yolanda, you shouldn't have said that. Oh, yo, they gonna get you. Well, guess what? I said it. It's the truth. Deal with it. I'm not going to take it back because it's the truth. If you pull 20 people from Congress, pull 20 people from the House, and say, I want you to live off of what they giving us to live off of. No more, no less. And I'm going to put you in a lower class neighborhood, and I'm going to put you over here in a low middle class neighborhood, and I'm going to say, okay, we're not going to give you substance. Okay, so you're not getting no kind of subsidized help because they're going to think you make too much. Based off everything that you're telling those people, we want you to try to survive off of. I guarantee you they would never do it. They would never be able to handle it. They will be mentally out their mind trying to figure out how to rob Peter to pay Paul. Yes, they would. So I believe, yes, they are, and we all know majority of them, yes, are descendants of those European families who came over and stole this land from the Native American people, who also enslaved our ancestors and who also went back and stole the free slaves' land. So, yes. Do I think they owe us reparations? Yeah, I do. I was actually taking a look at this man named Dorothy and his wife, Christian Mullen, okay, made the most comprehensive case for a reparations program in their latest book, From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. They argued a meaningful program to climate the existence in Black and white wealth, the gap. Okay? The Black and white wealth gap requires an allocation of between 10 trillion to 12 trillion, or about 800,000 to each eligible Black household. But yet Congress ain't going for that. Congress doesn't want to even acknowledge slavery exists. Congress doesn't even want to acknowledge their wrongdoing. So remember, we talked about the definition of reparation. Remember, I read to you the definition of reparation: restitution. The wrongdoing. So the wrongdoing in the beginning was when you went over there and you stole on people from their families and you put them on a boat in chains. Some of them had never seen the ocean before. And you were paying some of those people over there in whiskey and tobacco. That's why I love The Woman King when I watched the Woman King movie. And she said, where do we draw? It was like, where do we draw the line at enslaving our own people at what cost? They're not treating them the same as they're treating the people over here. See, the difference between when they were treating you, when you were considered an enslaved person in Africa, okay, you got to go back home to your family. You know, you served your time. It was servitude. until your family debt was paid off. Then you got to go back to your family. They didn't get to go back over. Their family saw them no ever more, never, ever, ever again. So for me, you wronged them. They didn't wrong you. They didn't ask for that. And don't get me started on the baby making. So once again, why is it so hard to give reparation? So hard to do it. It's well deserved. Our government cannot agree that now is the time to pay reparation. I say, when will be the time to pay reparation? We need reparation for and from. And let me tell you why I say for and from, because I'm going to give you some times and why I say that. From 1619 to 1865, which is 246 years, you kept our ancestors in bondage. They couldn't, just be like, okay, well, I'm going to just go on over here and see cousin so and so. No, you took them away from their people. You sold their children away from them. You sold their husbands, their wives away from them. You forced them to make babies with other men, make babies with other women against their will. You forced them to make babies or be raped and sexually assaulted with their enslaver, their overseers, because they didn't have no say so. So from December 31st, 1865, okay, that was 159 years ago. How long were our people enslaved, stolen from their homes and families by Europeans starting from 1619 to present day? 405 years. 405 years. I have yet to find an ancestor of mine who was paid while being enslaved. Oh, I hear them say that some enslaved were able to go out and work on their own and they were able to make a little bit of their money. But guess what? They have to still give that master some of their money. They done went and grew their own crop. They done tilled their own little part of their little area where they want to grow their own stuff to go ahead and make it, so they can put a little money in their pocket. But yeah, they still gotta break. They gotta get that master some money. What did that make? What difference did that? I mean, still, once again, doing something that they shouldn't have to do, but they're still making a profit. Okay? I found no ancestor of mine who was paid while being enslaved. However, I did find some ancestor siblings who were forced to be breeders. I found some, ancestors who children were mulatto. I found some of them who have had multiple children that were mulatto, that were siblings. I take a look at my third great grandparents on my mother's side, and you can see it all in them. You can see the Irish, you can see you can see it. Their skin, it tells it. Not saying every slave was raped. Not saying that. I'm not saying that they may not have had an understanding. Well, I belong to master, so he owns this body. He can do what he wants to do with it. He can just loan it out to whoever he feels like he wants to loan it out to. Okay. So, what is my idea of a reparation? What do I think? From 1619 to present day, including, yeah, we got to include that Jim Crow era because they were doing, oh my God, the hanging, the brutal beatings, the killing, the burning of houses. Just, yeah. Even still to this day, look at the murders that are being taken place. Just take a good look at that. So, what I think would be a good suggestion, $1,000 per year of being held against their will is a great start for a reparation payment. I think it's a great start. Consider you stole them from their land. They didn't have no say so. Consider you forced them to get on a boat. And when they rose up against you because they wanted to go back home, you killed them, you tossed them overboard into the ocean. Come on now. Come on, Congress. Come on, House of Representatives. When will the time be right for you guys to do what was wrongfully done by your ancestors? I believe y'all should do it. It shouldn't take y'all this long. It didn't take the insurance company that long to pay y'all ancestors for losing the slaves that they were losing because they were now freed. Or is it because it's us brown and black folks? Because what did the Holocaust victims get? Hmm? But yet and still, we didn't get anything. And you put these drugs in our neighborhoods, and you put these liquor stores, mom and pop beer stores in our neighborhoods, and we're not smart enough to know what you're doing. So we like, oh, it's convenient. We don't got to go to the state store if we want to have a little cocktail. So yes, I do believe we deserve that reparation. But I don't think they're willing to give it to us because if they were, they would have done so by now. They had 405 years to consider it. It has been presented to them on multiple occasions, but they don't want to do it. They can't come to an understanding, they can't come to an agreement. Why don't we throw you out there on a plantation and tell you you got 10 acres per person and see how much you can work out? And then maybe you'll come up with a figure. Well, that's our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. And I thank you once again for watching the Eyes of Life show. I am your host, Yolo Schubert. I appreciate you. And please continue to watch. Leave us comments about the topics that you're watching, that you're hearing. And remember to educate. Please keep our youth, please keep our people informed of what's going on around the world. We must continue to educate and teach our young people. Because if we don't start teaching at home, the schools and the world is not going to teach them the truth. So I thank you once again as your host, Yolo Schubert. Thank you for watching the Eyes of Life show. If you would like to support the Eyes of Life show, please, we can be supported through Cash App, $, the Eyes of Life show. Thank you for watching, and everybody have a great evening.